Hello, and welcome to this very first episode of Connected Let's Talk Wellbeing. I'm Gemma Holgate, and I'm really excited to be joined today by Nicole, who is a family sleep specialist. So, sleep is our kind of topic for January as part of our broader topic of physical well-being. Nicole, thank you so much for joining us. We connected through LinkedIn. I'd done a bit of a poll on LinkedIn about whether people feel like they get good sleep. Now, of all the people that responded to that poll, 49% of people said no, that they don't get good sleep. Just to kind of kick us off, what is good sleep? What would you kind of determine or define that as?
So it's a difficult one to say. Now we're looking at saying you need a minimum of a 4 hour block to be refreshed.
Okay.
Okay. Now everybody's sleep needs are very, very different. We're talking about 8 hours is what they say we do need generally as adults. How many realistically get anywhere close to that? The average now we're looking at about 6 to 7 hours. It seems to be what it's come down to.
Okay.
So there's also, but it's not just about the amount of hours that we're getting. It's
Yeah.
also how that sleep is divided up. So we have different sleep cycles and different sleep stages. So it's making sure we're getting a good amount of the non-REM sleep, which is that deep restorative sleep, where our growth hormones are kicking in, our immune system's repairing itself.
Yeah.
We've got the right amount of REM sleep, so we're getting our memory consolidation going with basically kicking out all the stuff that we don't need in the brain, all those toxins, and we're actually getting a bit of a brain detox as well. So these are really, really important things that happen while we sleep, and it's getting the right amount of each of them, and at the right other parts as well, because again, we've also got to consider while we're sleeping we've actually got hormones that release that are appetite modulation and things as
Right.
well. So it stops us from overeating. So, gosh, there is no sort of thing of the right sleep, the right amount of sleep. Everybody's different, but we need to kind of go off what your body needs and learning about you.
Yeah.
What That's the only way I can really say it. It's what you personally are needing. Some people cope well on 6 hours. Some people need a good 9 hours a night.
Okay. Okay. Fantastic. So let's kind of pick up on that then. How did you get into kind of being interested in sleep?
So I had my first baby back in February 2016. And I had a baby that decided that sleep was something that only other babies did. Who knew? I went to classes and they said to me, newborn babies sleep all the time. Breastfeeding's the most natural thing in the world. They just work their way up the body and just latch on. They've got it sussed. It's so intuitional. I went, okay, yeah. And I thought, I'm so maternal. I'm meant to be a mom. Yeah, it's going to be easy.
No.
And then we had birth trauma. We had a baby that wasn't feeding, that wasn't latching. We had infections. We had poor advice from the GP. Do you know what I mean? There was just so many things that started the whole journey off as a parent horrendously.
Yeah.
We were right on the back foot from the beginning because we weren't educated properly. We were given a lot of false sense of security.
Hmm.
Um, and we kind of went into it completely blind, thinking we knew what we were doing.
Yeah.
And we had no clue. And it just hit us something horrendous where we suddenly went from having sleep to we were lucky if we were getting a couple of hours a night and it was broken. And the other side, what we don't take into consideration is it's okay saying newborn babies sleep all the time. Yes, they might sleep 16 to 18 hours in 24, but their sleep is different to ours. We're
Yeah.
not used to being up every hour. We
Hmm.
need that block for that restorative purpose. We need that. And if we're not getting that block, that's what destroys us. So this went on for months and months and months. And I kept going to the health visitor And I kept asking for help, and I kept getting told, oh, we'll sort it out. I got a label as an anxious mum. I'm not anxious in the slightest. I've never been an anxious person. And
Yeah.
suddenly I've had this label slapped on me that I'm an anxious mum. And I'm going, if I actually was anxious, this would have made me so much worse. But
Yeah.
luckily, I just kept going, no, I just need sleep and I want to be the best mum I can be. I want to, never done it before. How can I get it right if I don't know what I'm doing? Something's obviously not working.
Yeah.
By the time we got to 7 months, I was absolutely on my knees, and I went to the health visitor and they told me to do what they called the Solihull technique, which was basically control crying. So it was me sitting on the stairs outside my daughter's bedroom while she's in the cot crying her eyes out. It was horrific. It was
Mm.
absolutely horrific, and it didn't work, and it went against everything that felt natural.
Yeah.
And we still weren't sleeping. And me and my husband, we'd gone through marriage counselling all through this period as well, because we couldn't cope. We didn't like each other because we couldn't. Everything changed. My physical health was falling apart. My mental health was falling apart. My marriage was falling apart. But yet I had the thing that I wanted the most in the world, that was this little baby. And this baby somehow was destroying us from the inside out. But we couldn't fix it, and nothing seemed to work. And when she got to 8.5 months, somebody recommended a sleep consultant. So we went to her. We couldn't afford it. We really couldn't afford it. But it was like, well, it's got to be cheaper than a divorce, which was kind of where we were at. It was literally, this is our last shot. We've done everything. I've read every book. There's nothing left.
Yeah.
And we went to her, and literally within a matter of days, we had our evenings back. And I'm not saying sleep was perfect. And to be fair, she's nearly 8 now, and she's still really difficult to manage. But that's just a lot to do with her temperament, her personality, her sleep needs, just so many things. And we think a lot of it might actually come back right from that beginning because of the way that the brain actually develops in those times. But she's really difficult, and I see it so differently with my 3-year-old, because obviously I've had the information this time and I've been able to implement it very differently. But suddenly, me and my husband were kind of going, we're kind of spending time with each other again, and actually, it was like having to get to know each other again. It was really, really strange, and I just found this passion for sleep. And I'd always thought, I always want to run my own business, but what would I actually want to do? Because to run your own business, as you know, you have to literally eat, breathe, sleep. Like, you just become obsessed, I suppose, in a way, with it. There was nothing that had kind of made me go, that's it, until this. And I went, this is it. I couldn't stop talking to people about it. I'd be in the park pushing her on the swings, talking to the dad next to me or the mum next to me. Oh, so how's your baby sleeping? And I couldn't stop. And then the opportunity came up with the person who I'd initially hired. And she was starting her first academy as such, to train other sleep coaches. And I was due to go back to work. I was going back part-time. So it wasn't the right time, but it kind of got me thinking. Things weren't going well when I went back to work. That's a different story completely. One, but what we're probably going to end up talking a little bit about. About what it's like in the actual workplace. But then it became obvious that redundancy was on the cards, which was very lucky, because if I didn't get the redundancy, I'd have been pushed. And I was able to use the redundancy money to set my business up and do the training. So I started studying while I was working. And as the crossover came, and then I just kind of went into that. I've been doing it now for over 6 years. I love it.
Wow. Congratulations.
I'm such a geek.
No, it's great, because I think if I've learned anything, over my kind of pregnancy and birthing journey, is that there's so many of us out there, kind of new mums or first time mums, and there's so much information, and some of it's conflicting, and they say don't rely on Dr. Google and all of that kind of stuff. So it's where do you get your information from? How do you know if you're doing the right thing for you, the right thing for your baby? And those are the things that you kind of worry about all the time. Am I doing the best for them?
Am I
Um,
good enough?
yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. Um, so what kind of things do new parents come to you for, and how do you help them?
So over the years, it's mainly been on a want to, gosh, I do a variety of things, but I'm very much moving into this corporate world at the moment. But over the years, it started off where I was working with people on a one-to-one basis solely. So they would come to me, I would analyze their whole situation. It would be all online because I could help people anywhere in the world. They would do a really detailed assessment form. They would send me sleep diaries so I could analyze everything that's going on in that life. And then I could obviously would get onto a consultation, and then we'd start making tweaks and say, right, okay, based on what's going on, this is what we're going to do next. This is the starting point. And then I'd support them through that. So what they would then do is they would continue to send me sleep diaries. We would keep having calls, and I would help them move the plan on at a place that they need. So every family was different.
Yeah.
I kept having to study as well because I very quickly learned that one course isn't enough. To be the best at what you're doing and to be able to help people, you have to keep studying,
Yeah.
doing more courses and stuff like that. But I need to thirst for knowledge. But then I got frustrated with the fact that it was only people that could afford help could
Mm,
get help. This just doesn't feel right to me.
mm,
Um, so that kind of back in 2019, pre-COVID, I went online, and I created online courses to try and help people in that way. So I was
yeah.
like, there's actually something else that's going on here where we need to make sure that everybody can get evidence-based information, that doesn't cost the earth. So I
Yeah.
kind of went down that route as well. Um, and then obviously what I also do is I help up to 6 years old because there's another there's so many different parts. I waffle all day. I'm so sorry. There's another huge part which is in this crossover between 20 months-ish upwards, where it changes from being less about sleep and more about behaviours. And we've got a bit of an issue with the world where you'll see it, where if you start hitting Dr. Google, you'll start to see that sleep consultants are very much the sleep, parenting and behavioural specialists are about the behaviours, but neither of them actually really cross those boundaries, cross over. And actually, I learned through personal experience with my eldest, through some, again, further down the line trauma that we went through with her, when I had to start studying more into the behaviour side of things, how you actually end up merging them together.
Okay.
And even the best sleepers, and this is the biggest problem we have in the corporate side, if an employee comes back and their baby is sleeping well, it doesn't necessarily mean that that's going to be continuous, because
Mm,
around the age of 2 years old, the child themselves goes through a huge development, and sleep tends to end up taking a bit of a back step while they're going through this, and the behaviours change. And it's a completely normal thing, but it tends to knock the parents. And if they're used to sleep and suddenly they're not getting sleep,
hmm
it causes massive problems because they go, well, who do I ask? Because I've been coping okay for the last year since I've been back, and my boss has got this expectation of me.
hmm
Now, this workload, I'm not coping. What am I supposed to do? But they don't know how to fix the problem because they've never had to deal with it before. So again,
Yeah.
I'll come into that and I'll help families with a whole overall situation, and educating them really on evidence-based information.
Mm,
So I kind of do everything from, you're about to have a baby, this is the reality of it, basically. This is what you are going to need to know before your baby comes,
hmm
uh, stuff that nobody tells you.
Yeah.
Where you found your feeding specialist, how are you going to feel as a parent once your baby's arrived? Because again, nobody warned you about that one. Whew, that roller coaster. How you communicate with your partner throughout all of that as well, right through to children turning 6. So that's kind of what I do. But then also with that, it's helping the parents reconnect as well, helping them start getting better sleep. Because again, they can end up with some of their own negative habits that fall into place because the child's not sleeping, they're not sleeping, and that has an effect on their mental health and their anxiety levels. So again, it's just trying to sort of level things out for a whole family unit and just
Yeah.
make things better.
Amazing, amazing. So if you had kind of three things that you would tell new parents about the kind of sleep and communication and all of that kind of thing, what would those three things be?
Oh, right. Prepare. Know where everything is in advance of your baby coming along,
Yeah,
right? You need to know where your baby groups are, but not just where the baby groups are, what types they are, because you need to find your own village,
yeah,
right, of people that suit your personality. So when we're looking at these baby groups, you'll have your baby sensory type classes, which is great.
hmm
Then you've got your mum walking groups, you've got your exercise ones. Each type of group tends to have a different type of personality that goes into it. And if you wait until your baby comes and then you start looking for something, you might kind of end up in one that's not got your people around you.
yeah,
So you want to find your village. So you
hmm
start finding that before your baby comes. What types of things are there out there? The other thing with regards to communication with your partner, start talking in advance, openly and honest about how you feel. Be aware that if you're struggling with sleep, you might, talk in advance and say, right, okay, do you know what? We've realized that maybe this isn't going to be the walk in the park that we think it's going to be. You know, if I start biting at you a few months down the line, it does not mean I don't love you. It means I'm struggling.
yeah,
And it goes the other way. So actually, we need to make sure that we are totally open and honest right from the beginning about how we're feeling rather than bottling things up.
hmm
Because we're really good at bottling things up, especially mums. We're awful at it because we go, oh, he's gone out to work. He's at work all day. He's coming home. He thinks I'm at home all day, just kind of doing this. Oh, he thinks I've got the easy life. I've just got to get on with it. Do you know what I mean? I can't moan
yeah,
about it because he's out. I can't say how I'm feeling. Actually, do you know what? Your feelings are totally valid because this is a job that you've never done before.
yeah,
And you can't know how you're going to feel. And actually, he's got feelings as well that are
hmm
totally different that he doesn't understand. And if you don't actually start talking about these properly um, before the baby comes and then continuing with it, you will end up just kind of you butting heads with each other.
yeah,
And that's not the place to be at all.
yeah.
Um, what was the other one you wanted?
Just a third tip, just a general one.
General, right? Let's think. Come on. There's so many. Um, um, right. Trust your own instincts.
Okay.
If something doesn't feel right, chances are it's not right.
Yeah.
Don't take what your health visitor or your GP say at face value. They don't know everything. I've experienced this, and even my consultant at the hospital thanked me questioning them because they went off and did their own research and came back. And by me doing that, they've changed the way everybody in Manchester with a particular illness and gets certain medication gets treated now.
Wow.
They didn't know the information. So don't take it on face value. Trust your instinct, do your research, and be completely honest about things. And know that actually, if you're feeling not right, something
hmm
is.
Yeah.
Don't be fobbed off being told it's normal, because if it's not normal for you, it's not normal.
Yeah.
Ask for help because we're all going through it. We've all been through it, and
Yeah.
it's not easy.
Absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's really, really important. So thank you. Um, just picking up then on the corporate, the work side of things. Um, obviously, when the little one comes along, life still continues and people go back to work while they're kind of dealing with a lack of sleep. What through your experience, professional experience, what impact does that have in the workplace?
Oh gosh, right. So we did some research earlier in the year, early in 2023. Oh no, gosh, it goes fast, doesn't it? And I'll be honest, even I was surprised by the figures because I think we all feel like we're on our own on
Hmm
this fight. And I just kept thinking, from my own experience, I thought, I can't be the only one.
Yeah.
And I'd done little bits of surveys and stuff like that and chatted to people, nothing big. And I kind of got a bit of a vibe that it was a bigger problem than we thought. So we put out a survey back in the summer last year, sort of spring, summer, and got some information back from people to find out what the reality is.
Yeah.
And it's frightening. It's absolutely frightening. And fear is the biggest thing that runs right throughout: fear of judgment, fear of losing the job, fear of not being good enough, fear of the manager saying something, or fear of the colleagues thinking that they're letting them down, fear of just fear in every single thing, that they're just failing.
Mm-hmm.
We're just not putting the right things in place. The stuff that's really come out is that actually, I don't think businesses know how big the problem is.
Mm-hmm.
They're not putting things in place to support them. The managers don't know how to support them. So, and I think there's a big issue with the communication. So we might have HR up here that are kind of going, we have all these policies in place, we have support. Managers down here are going, we don't know about this support.
Yeah.
Employee here is kind of going, I'm really struggling. Managers going, well, my manager's on my back about my targets. You just got to get on with it. I can't be moaning about this. So you've just got to get on, rather than what have we actually got within the business that we can support you with? Where can we send you? And because somebody's not been through it, they might not really understand how that person's feeling.
Mm-hmm.
We're looking at this figure, frightens me. And this is why I know that the problem is so much bigger than anybody could anticipate. 33% of the parents that were surveyed had rang in sick after they'd had a bad night's sleep, but only 7.7% were able to admit the truth.
Right.
That's
Wow.
horrendous. We're looking at over 25% of people having to lie about the reason they actually had to ring in sick.
Yeah.
That tells you straight away that the businesses don't know that that problem exists, because they're
Mm.
not finding out.
Yes.
Oh God, it's terrifying. We're looking at, I think it's 20, well, what did I write it down before? 28% of parents actually left their job through lack of support. So they've gone back, and over 1 in 4 have left, with
Wow.
another 13% that are still actively looking. That's
Mm.
40% of people that are actually looking to get out of the job that they've gone back to.
Yeah.
1 in 3 have had either a mostly negative or a really negative experience going back to work after having a baby.
Mm.
You kind of go, these are really frightening figures.
Yeah.
Um, and somebody said to me recently, what you do must be really niche. It must be quite a small market. And I went, do you know what? If you work it out, so according to the population data .org, there's 33% of the population are between the ages of 20 and 44. So
Mm.
sort of childbearing age is a majority.
Yeah.
Well, there's nearly 700,000 babies born every year in the UK. So that's 1.4 million parents a year. So that's 16% of the population
Yeah.
that are becoming parents every single year.
Mm-hmm.
Now, one of the questions I actually asked was, at what age did your baby start sleeping well enough for you to function safely in your job? Not productively, just safely.
Yeah.
62% didn't even get to the sort of 18 months. So it was 40% so between 18 months and 3 years old. 22% said their child still wasn't sleeping post 3
Wow.
years. If we take an absolute shortest window, which is, say the mum goes back to work at 12 months and the baby starts to sleep well enough by 18 months, we're looking at 868,000 parents that are not safe for at least 6 months to do their job.
Oh, wow.
That's massive.
Yeah.
And 308,000 past 3 years.
Yeah.
It's huge.
Huge. Yeah.
And we're not doing anything about it.
Mm-hmm.
There's 4 things we need to survive on a daily basis: oxygen, food, water, sleep.
Mm.
Well, we all talk about the fact you need to be able to breathe. You know, we're doing all this stuff with the CO2 and everything like that. We need to we talk about people eating well and drinking water. When are people actually talking about the need for sleep and the quality of it and how it actually affects us? We've got a huge thing where everybody's talking about well-being, and you know this. We need to improve people's well-being, but at the root, and then I know this is something that you talk about. It's at that root. I envisage a tree where we've got all these different branches, and what we're doing is we're pruning all these branches all around it. There's menopause, all these types of things around the top. Your mental health. Actually, if we don't water the root, we don't water the base, which is the fact that if that person is not sleeping,
Yeah.
not anything you do up here is going to work.
Yeah.
Because you've not fixed the source.
Yeah.
Improve the source of the problem, everything else you can flourish. You can work with it. But there's no point putting plasters over something that if you're not going to fix the big problem.
Absolutely, absolutely. And it's absolute sort of music to my ears to hear other people kind of singing off the same hymn sheet and talking about how if you haven't got a good foundation, everything else is going to fall over, and sleep is, like you said, one of the four parts of that. And as a well-being consultant, I speak to a lot of businesses and organizations, and we talk about the philosophy of bringing your whole self to work, and being able to turn up as who you are. But to hear those statistics around people having to lie to their employers, and businesses kind of not understanding how they can help, and how to have those conversations. I think it sort of really highlights the need to bring this to the forefront. Um, uh, Obviously, I read through some of the research that you did, and found it absolutely fascinating. But you had some recommendations on there around what businesses can do to
Yeah.
support parents or people who aren't sleeping well. Would you mind just running us through a couple of those?
Absolutely. I think one of the biggest things we need to actually look at is we talk about everybody having an open door policy, but we need to actually have an open ear policy.
Yeah.
No
Love
point
that.
having an open door policy if we're not listening, if we're
Yeah.
not going to do anything about it. And actually, in a lot of cases, we're not asking the person to fix the problem for us.
Yeah.
Sometimes we fix our own problems by talking about it,
Hmm.
or find a solution for it. So having the open ear policy where someone can come in and talk about their problems, what it is that they're struggling with, have that conversation, two-way conversation, where the manager might say, well, have you thought about this? And yes, okay, you might have done that, but maybe there's something that could be said somewhere else that doesn't necessarily, you haven't thought of. You go, oh, actually, do you know what? I'll give that a go. And you have that open conversation.
Hmm.
And you walk away going, actually, do you know what? I feel a bit better about that.
Yeah.
And having that without the judgment,
Yeah.
and knowing that that person you're speaking to is not judging you. They're just kind of listening and going, yes, we understand that there is a problem that you're facing, and it's impacting you. And we're not saying that you shouldn't be in work, which is something I used to face when I went back. Maybe you shouldn't be in work then if you're so tired. Literally what my manager said to me in my job was like,
Wow.
I've got the bills to pay. That doesn't work.
Yeah.
I drove for my job as well, which didn't help. Um, but having that there, allowing those employees to maybe have just 15 minutes where they can go off and just do nothing.
Mm.
Literally 15 minutes where they can go off, whether it be to meditate, whether it be to do with the exercise if that's what they want to do, if they feel that that's what's going to get their energy levels up.
Mm.
Something where they're not having to be on their phones, they're not having to work, they're not feeling like they've got a target to do, they're allowed to just go and have that time. It's only 15 minutes. Not going to fix the problem, but if you're a parent, that 15 minutes, that can feel like a lifetime,
Hmm.
because we don't get 15 minutes. And for somebody to say, do you know what? Because I mean, how often do you say to people, can you give yourself 15 minutes a day of self-care?
All the
And
time.
do they say to you, I haven't got 15 minutes?
Yes. Yeah.
If they give them 15 minutes to go off and actually force to look after themselves,
Hmm.
what a difference that could make
Yeah.
to them. And think the other big thing for me is educate the management on the fact that just because the managers don't understand, it doesn't mean that somebody else within the business isn't able to actually help.
Yeah.
So not to just put the kibosh on it straight away. If they don't know, they will ask a further afield to see if there's something that they can actually help with.
Yeah.
Because one of the worst things I read from that report, one of the things that came in was, and it breaks my heart. You'll have read some of them. Was the one where she said the new manager asked how old the children were, and when she said 4 and 2, the manager said, "Oh, good, they can look after themselves for a few hours then." And the managers don't have that understanding. If they've not been there and they've not lived it, they haven't got that understanding. So if it's something they don't get, don't try to advise.
Yeah.
Pass it to somebody who can help.
Yeah.
Because we're just going to keep putting blocks in the way.
Yeah, absolutely. And speaking of reading things, is there any kind of anything that you would recommend in terms of books or literature or anything that you think has been helpful?
Oh gosh. You've got to get the Matthew Walker's book, Why We Sleep.
Yes. Brilliant book. Brilliant.
That kind of answers a lot of questions for people. But then obviously the how you get the sleep is the very different type of thing. Every baby's different. So there isn't a book I can suggest to somebody to say this is going to fix your problem.
Yeah.
One of the things that we did towards the end of last year, we had a business that we did a case study with where the business allowed the employees to have half an hour a day over a week to go through the online course that was relevant for their child's age. Because they were doing it in work time, they all did it.
Yeah.
And then that's what actually they've all had coaching calls, and it's massively improved their sleep to the point that one of the people said a job that used to take 3 to 4 hours was back to taking them an hour to do. Right. So education is key, but knowing what type of education.
Yeah.
You can't do what you see when you were saying before about what to do with Dr. Google. That's the problem with books. There's just, again, it's becoming a market that's saturated. The sleep industry itself is not a regulated industry.
Yeah.
And that's the bit you've got to be so careful with, which is why I'm not saying go and get this book.
Yeah.
Because it's not regulated. It needs to be. People can do a 1-day course and call themselves a sleep consultant and start helping people. And it's not great. So yeah, always make sure you're doing research into what somebody's actually done, their qualifications, their understanding and everything like that before you do anything.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And I think that's the same with any kind of helping profession. Just making sure that people have that relevant qualifications and experience and you're gonna get, a help out of it. Just finally then, and thank you so much for sharing with us. It's been really, really great. How can people get in touch with you?
Well, you can email me first if you want at hello@nicoleratcliffe.co.uk or find me on LinkedIn, or you've got my website, which is nicoleratcliffe.co.uk or baby2sleep.co.uk, which is the number 2 in there, so you can find me there.
Brilliant.
LinkedIn
Thank you.
is the best place.
Yeah, no, LinkedIn's fantastic for meeting people, and I'm really glad that we were able to connect. And as I say, thank you so much for sharing. It's been really interesting, and I know that there's a lot of kind of different groups and settings where this is going to be really helpful for people. So thank you.
We've got further research coming as well, which is going to be great because we're kind of cost it all out as to how much it's actually costing businesses. Having that time off and things like that. It's massive though. That's going to take a bit of time, but that's the next step.
Yeah. Well, I'd love to see that when it's ready. I'd love to. I think that'd be really interesting.
Brilliant. Well, thank you for having me.
No worries.
Well, with your little one.
Thank you very much. Thank you. Bye.
Bye.